Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Chris Weidenbar, and joining us today from the Australian Army Reserve is Major Dale Cooper. We are honoured to acknowledge General Mahmood Hayat, Chairman, Joint Chief of Staff Committee, Pakistan, Mrs. Malia Bhatti, accompanied by His Excellency Babar Amin, High Commissioner of Pakistan to Australia, General Angus Campbell, Chief of Defence Force Australia, and the accompanying delegation. We warmly welcome the members of the Australian Federal Police that are joining us today to mark National Police Remembrance Day, which commemorates all those Australian police officers who have been killed on duty or died as a result of their service. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors and by students on behalf of the following schools. From South Australia, Eden Hills Primary School, and Walford Anglican Girls' School Primary Department, Unley. From New South Wales, St Clair Public School, and from Tasmania, Penguin District School's Secondary Department. I now invite all who are able to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Thank you. Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's first World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway lands. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved. And here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private James Brown. James Brown and his twin brother Raymond were born about 1894 to Raymond and Anne Brown of Nanango, a rural town 150 kilometres northwest of central Brisbane. After attending Leichhardt Street State School in Brisbane, James went on to work as a labourer. In July 1915, he was employed as a timber worker when a recruitment drive came through Nanango. James, who had been a member of the Cadets and the Naval Reserve, and 6 of his co-workers enlisted that same day. They were given an enthusiastic send-off and left for Brisbane shortly afterwards. Some initial training in Australia followed before Private Brown boarded the troop ship Demosthenes, bound for the Middle East. Originally allotted to reinforcements to the 31st Battalion, after landing in Egypt, Brown was transferred to the 47th Battalion, which had been raised as part of the expansion of the AIF. About half of its new recruits were Gallipoli veterans from the 15th Battalion, while the other half were fresh reinforcements from Australia, like Brown. After training in the desert camps on the outskirts of Cairo, the 47th Battalion arrived in France in June, entering the trenches of the Western Front for the first time on the 3rd of July. The conditions in the trenches had an immediate impact on Brown, who reported sick with a swollen and septic knee. He was admitted to hospital for treatment, but was back with his unit in time to participate in his first major battle at Pozières. The 47th Battalion provided working parties during the 2nd Division's attack on the 4th of August, and then went on to defend the ground that had been captured. On the 20th of September, Brown and his battalion left Alberta camp, where they had been training and resting, and moved into positions at the front line. The troops would remain here for just under a week, at which point they were to be relieved by the 45th Battalion. Private Brown would not return with them. On the 25th of September 1916, the 22-year-old was killed in action. He was buried at Vormezele, enclosure number 3, 4 kilometres from Ypres, in Belgium, underneath the epitaph chosen by his twin brother. He gave his all that we may be free. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private James Brown, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.